Hey everybody, my name is Mark Knockemus,
And my name is Ron Stafford.
and we're from Northeastern Technical College,
Woohoo!
which is in Cheraw, South Carolina.
Spell that.
In case you're curious of where Cheraw is, if you draw a straight line from Charlotte to Myrtle Beach, Cheraw is exactly in the middle of that straight line. And Cheraw is famous for being,
We are the birthplace of Dizzy Gillespie.
so we got that going for us.
All right. And in case you're wondering who we are and what we do, I'm here on the left. My name is Ron Stafford. I'm the head librarian here at Northeastern Technical College. And currently in this photo, I'm reading a book by my wife, Virginia Woolf.
And that's me on the right with my PAL award. PAL stands for being a professor for affordable learning. And I teach English and religion here at NETC.
And I'll let Mark take it over.
A good place to begin talking about OERs here at NETC would be to talk about the corridor of shame. You can see the counties here in red of South Carolina. This is the corridor of shame. These are counties that historically have been underfunded with education from the state legislature in Columbia. And this has been going on for decades and decades. Two of our service counties are in the corridor of shame. So what happens is that education is not valued in the corridor of shame. Students and families really don't understand its importance and its significance and how education can lift families out of poverty. A good example of this, in 2020 when the pandemic started, we all were sent home, of course, with everybody else. So we had to shift our classes from being face-to-face to being online. And we also had Zoom. And I got a message from a student who said he wanted to have a Zoom conference. So I got that set up and sent him the link. And then we were outside, a beautiful spring day, and he was talking to me through his phone and going back and forth. And I said, hey, go to your computer and pull up that document, and it'll be easy for me to explain this to you using that document that I sent. She's like, okay, cool. So he walks inside and he's, has his phone, and then he puts his phone down on table and everything goes blurry and then comes back into focus. And then I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at, and I'm looking at the ceiling in his kitchen. And it took me a few moments to figure out what I was seeing. There was a sheet of plywood covering up a hole in his kitchen, and they just had painted it white. Now, this is just one little example to illustrate how if you have low-cost or no-cost textbooks, you're going to be making a difference in your student, in the lives of your students. That's as simple as it is. Because with this student's family, just imagine him going to his parents and saying, hey, can I have $1,000 to buy books, when they're repairing their kitchen ceiling with a sheet of plywood? You can only imagine what that student would have, what he would have to go through to ask his parents for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for books that he's only going to use for one semester. So, being in the corridor of shame, it's really hard for our students and their families to understand education and its significance and its value in changing their lives. So, what happens being in the corridor of shame for us here at NETC? Well, that first bullet point I've already touched upon. In addition, within our three-county service area, there's no four-year colleges or universities. So that shows that being an institute of higher education is really a struggle. In the three-county service area, we're the only two-year college. If we expand and we pull in Florence and Darlington counties, excuse me, then we pick up an additional 2-year college, which is Florence Darlington Technical College, and then 2 4-year colleges, which is Coker University and Francis Marion University. So there's really not that many colleges in the area. Another fact of this is that students lack family support for education. So if a student is struggling in college, then the parents might not say, oh, it's going to be okay. You know, I went to college too, and the first year is going to be a little bit struggles, trials and tribulations. Not going to happen. Almost all of our students are first-generation college students. So in their struggle, their parents might say, see, I told you so. You don't need to go to college. You need to get a job and help out with expenses here at home. So they have trouble navigating. They don't have a supporting voice at home. And one thing after another. So you can only imagine what it's like for our students.
Okay, now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the regional data. What I did was I pulled wonderful data and numbers from different schools' iPads. And we wanted to look at exactly what it costs a student textbook-wise. And Mark and I sat down and we figured out that the magic number is roughly $1,377 for that first semester in college. And we kind of broke it down by classes. And if you see the classes on the screen, English 101, Biology 101, Math 141, these are classes everybody has to take. So we started to think, how can we really help our students? And our idea was, let's find OERs, and let's find OERs first for our general ed classes. So we've kind of looked at the iPad data, and we thought, what does other colleges cost? So we pulled statistics for Coker University, Florence Darlington, for ourselves at Francis Marion, and we realized textbooks costs are expensive.
And you'll notice by Northeastern Technical College, that cost there has a red asterisk. What does that red asterisk represent, Ron?
That means pretty much we're down to, at the most, maybe $300 a semester for students, because currently 99% of our general education classes all use OERs.
So that is before our OER initiative here at the college.
And $1,700 is a lot to ask students to buy textbooks and to pay that money for textbooks. And who gets the money? Who gets the money from textbooks? Do you get it for writing them?
No.
Do our students get the money? Does our bookstore get it?
No.
We're paying publishers to publish all these textbooks.
Oh, and it's just like the mafia.
Oh, yeah. And one thing we want you to take away is our choice of textbooks is financially handicapping our students. We're lucky here at Northeastern. Our students, we don't do the federal student loan program, so students are not leaving with debt, but at a lot of other schools, especially four-year schools, you see students leaving with their undergraduate with hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt, and that's something we as instructors and librarians can help by saying, whoa, let's go OER and see what happens. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some facts and figures, and a lot of people are surprised when they find out that textbooks cost has risen more than anything else. It has just skyrocketed.
Even more than medical costs.
And that's saying something. I don't know, but now, Mark, with the cost of lumber, it may be more than textbooks, but textbooks have not seen a decrease, only an increase in the last 30 years. From 1980 until, looks like about 2015, it's been 812% rise in textbooks, which is just mind-boggling. And like we were talking about before, only the publishing companies win, because if you look at this, everything goes right for the publishing company. The manufacturers get 28% of the cost. Let's see, what do we see here? Authors get 11%.
That's pennies.
That's pennies, man. We're feeding these big, giant publishing companies.
It's the mafia.
And we're handicapping our students because they're going into debt to get an education. And we can do better. And then some of the things that we found with textbook costs, we have students that can't afford them, so they get a poor grade.
Or they take fewer classes, which results in them being in college longer, which of course costs more money because they have to stay here for a few extra semesters.
And we do know that since Mark Knockemus here especially was one of the first ones to start offering OER classes, and how did that affect your enrollment?
Oh, my classes filled up.
And do students like not having to pay for a textbook?
Oh, they love it. They love it. So So if you think about it, so a student might sign up for a class but not be able to afford the book. So what's going to happen? They're going to make bad grades, right? So they might drop the class or stay in the class and fail it. So we're seeing here that just the high cost of textbooks is hurting students not just financially, but academically, and it's making them stay enrolled longer. It's just not a good situation. So because of this, right, 65% of students say that they didn't buy a textbook because it was so expensive. And out of that group, 94% were worried that not purchasing the textbook would negatively impact their grades. So they might be sitting in class without a book. They might be worried they'll be called upon to, turn to a certain page and read something or do that problem, and they don't have a book. So this is something that our students really worry about. So why should I use an OER? So far, we've been hitting the drum of cost, right? But there's other reasons. If you have an OER, you can start teaching the first day of class. That's right. You might be saying, well, how can you teach the first day of class? Well, the students don't need to go to the bookstore. What you do is you take your OER and you upload it to your LMS. Then when you're showing the students how to use the MLS on the first day of class, you say, hey, everybody, click this, and boom, that's your book. And then you jump right into it. So it's really cool. You just get to start teaching that first day of class. Also, you don't have to wait for the update. You know how the sciences and the technologies, right? That content is moving fast, as well as history. So you can open up your OER and you can put that update in yourself. So you don't have to worry and wait for the new edition, because you get to do the new edition yourself, which is really cool. Another part is personalizing a text. What do I mean by personalizing? I went to a workshop one time where the professor was teaching geometry, right? We know how exciting that is. So what she did, she went around and took pictures of buildings on campus and students, for actual students, and put those in her textbook. So the students were using the book and they saw classmates in the book, and the actual buildings that were on campus were in the book. And so the students really, really liked seeing that.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows your students better than you, and who knows what they need better than you?
Nobody. I know my students. And part of this is accessibility, the writing style. If you ever have students come up and say, wow, Mr. K, I read that chapter, but I really didn't understand it. Could you explain it to me? That means that they're spending $200 on a book that they're struggling with, right? So you get to tailor the writing style so it's accessible to your students. So you know your students' strengths and weaknesses. If you know that, say for example, chapter 4 is a really dense chapter, and in class you have to spend a lot of time pulling it apart. I mean, take that chapter and do it yourself and make it more accessible. Pull it apart in the text so you can spend the class time not reading and explaining things in the textbook for your students, but for helping the students to understand that information.
Okay, and I'll take back over. Currently, Northeastern Technical College, we are leading the way in the South Carolina technical system for the adoption of OERs. Me and Mark are often called upon to talk to other colleges and other instructors on how.
We're happy to do it.
And we're happy to do it. We love this is our passion. We're happy to do it. But this is something new even here at Northeastern. I've been employed here almost 3 years. And when I got here, OER was kind of under the radar. Very few people knew what it was, and they were not really willing to move to it. So I was hired in 2016, 18 basically, and I'll let Mark tell his story before I got here.
Yeah. So I kind of stumbled upon OERs by accident. I was really upset with the textbook that we were using for English 101, which is English Composition 1. We're using from idea to essay. And I found the students were coming up to me saying, we did those, did that exercise in the book, but I need more help with that. Can you help me? So I started designing handouts. And here's a tip. If you're designing handouts for your students and you already have them buy a book, why are you making handouts? Well, that's telling you that your book isn't getting the job done. So I realized that, and I looked, and I had almost 30 pages of handouts that I've done over the years. I've been teaching coming up on 25 years now, and this was many years ago, and I was like, wow, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? So one semester, I bit the bullet and just sat down and designed the course handout, which is there in the middle of the screen with that word cloud. So it has almost, at that time, about 100 pages. They were all handouts that I had developed, model papers, assignments, so on and so forth. So on the first day of class, what I did, I told the students, hey, if you've bought this book, take it back to the bookstore and get your money back. And instead, tell them you want this handbook, which was sold at cost. It was maybe like $2.10. And we used every page. We didn't waste anything in that course handbook. And the students just loved it. And in case you're curious, yeah, that's an OER. That's an open educational resource. I basically did it myself without knowing what I was doing. So then I started to dig deeper and to look more, what else could I do? And that's when I came upon repositories of OERs, and I educated myself about it. And I was like, holy cow. And that's what you see on the right. For the 200 level English survey lits, right, you're probably making your students buy the Norton anthologies.
And how much is that?
Please stop. They're hundreds of dollars, and you only use a few hundred pages out of the thousands of pages in those. And there's those anthologies online right now for free. Right? Shakespeare's dead. He's not making any money. Chaucer's dead. He's not making any money. All this stuff is online for free. So that's when I educated myself, learned how to download an OER and convert it to a PDF, which I'll talk to you all about shortly, and then save changes, and then I got to put my name on the cover. And believe it or not, when first day of class, when you show the students how to access the book and the students see your name on the cover of the book, they get really excited. It's really kind of cool. And they said, did you do this book, Mr. K? And I talked to them about it. It's like, everybody in this book's dead. Nobody's making any money except for these textbook publishers. It's the mafia. It's true. Stop laughing. And then they're like, wow. And it's a really good way to generate some enthusiasm.
Okay, now I'll pick up the story in 2018 about I was hired as the head librarian. I'm thinking, what can we really do, or what can I do to start making changes that will help our students? And I was talking to administration, and they're like, our students are paying so much money for textbooks. There's something we can do. And I thought, we can go to OERs. And I decided, how do I need to start this? I was new. I didn't really know anyone here. So I just did a quick survey asking instructors, faculty, administrator, what are OERs? Have you used them? Would you use them? Would you be interested in using them? So I sent out this survey to maybe 200 people. I got one response back, and it was Mark Knockemus. And I'll never forget, he said, I think I'm already using OERs, but I'm not sure. So we got to know each other well. We got started working together, and then the NETC famous Dream Team was born. So we moved into 2019, and I thought, let's really kick this off. So I was working with Pascal, which in South Carolina is a partnership among South Carolina academic libraries. And I had some of their members to come and talk to us about OERs and how wonderful they were. And I got this kind of excitement and this building of excitement. And people were like, oh, let's try this. So I thought, I'm going to use Mark. Mark has always been like the cheerleader. He's my go-to. He's my gal Friday, I guess. If I need something done, I go to Mark. So I thought, let's try this. Mark had already written, at this time, I think all of his English classes were OERs.
Yes.
So I'm like, well, okay, Mark, let's do this. Let's apply to get you named professor for affordable learning. And he did it and got his certificate. He even put the little clingy sticker on the Prius.
That's right.
So he was putting around campus in his Prius, and the other faculty started saying, whoa, because we're a competitive bunch here at Northeastern. We'll cut through it with bingo. So the other faculty and instructors saw this, and they thought, if Mark can do it, I want to do it. So they started coming to me asking, how can I do this? What's the process? So I started working with them, especially our biology instructors were next, because they were spending a lot of money. They were using Cengage and a lot of peripheral software. And I'm thinking at one point it was about $300 for just one biology class. So I thought, we got to do something. So 2020 for Open Education Week, I had this idea that even to myself, I thought this is not going to work. It's stupid. I thought, why are you doing this? Why are you opening Pandora's box? But I had an event called the Campus Huddle. And I had our marketing department to make a huge sign that said if I didn't have to buy textbooks, I could buy ... And we gave the students little speech bubbles to fill in. And I was thinking, they're going to list things like new shoes, designer clothing, iPads, iPhones. I was really surprised.
They were putting really, some of the things were tugging at your heart.
Rent.
Childcare, rent, food. It was...
I can graduate faster.
Yeah.
Shoes for my... I remember one student wrote, I can afford to eat healthy food instead of McDonald's.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, including myself, thought this was absolutely a crazy thing. But I think a lot of instructors that were holding out on doing OERs, they came by, they looked at what our students did, and they realized we really are handicapping our students. And so early 2020, there was this huge buzz that was going on, and then we all know what happens in 2020, COVID. But I will say, COVID helped us a lot with OERs, and I want to give a shout out to our LMS manager, Dirk Reichers. Dirk has been really good. He's the unofficial third of this dream team. But he's been really good working with, we have D2L and our LMS, of showing faculty how wonderful OERs are. I'm going to kick it back over to Mark.
Yeah. So here's what's important, guys, right? When the pandemic hit in spring, of course, that semester had started. But then summer, right? Nobody was allowed on campus. So how are the students going to get your books? How is this going to happen? It's going to take weeks for this to happen. Luckily, with OERs, that's a PDF. That's an electronic file. You just drop it into your LMS. Boom. And it happens. Things were going about as well as they could have during the pandemic for us. Then when we were working from home, Ron and I started doing professional development workshops. So more and more people could learn how to do this, and more classes could transition, and we could help out our students. Because if you think about it, like, for example, summer term is a 10-week term. If it takes 2 weeks for a student to get his or her books, that's a fifth of the class gone. That's 20%. That's not a way to help your students be successful. It's just problems.
And we also learned during the pandemic, students were not working as much because a lot of places closed. We found out that because we were using OERs, our students could afford to take 2 or 3 extra classes. All the classes were OER based, and they got through their programs a lot faster. And I think our students really like OERs, like your classes fill up first.
Yeah.
And what Dirk Rogers and I are working on for the fall, we're going to publish a list on our D2L of every class that uses OERs and see if those fill up faster. Because I think they will. We'll see what happens. And then in 2021, we've continued doing workshops and webinars and really reaching out. We've had colleges reach out to us saying, come help us. And
not just in South Carolina, but we also have been presenting nationally.
That's right.
We were going to do at a conference in Las Vegas, and then COVID came, so we lost out on our free trip to Las Vegas. Oh, that was
But
a kicker.
but we were happy to do it. We're always, the two
Yep.
of us cannot stress it enough. We are more than happy to work with anyone that needs help with OERs. We're really getting involved now with the South Carolina Tech system. So if you happen to be a South Carolina Tech instructor, we're your people. We're glad to help anybody. But it's a lot of work to get an initiative started. But it's really good for your students, and your students will love it. And one thing that we really need to stress is building your own OERs. And during the pandemic, I thought, I'm an academic librarian. I was still in graduate school, getting a graduate certificate. I thought, I'm just not busy enough. So I decided to go and get certified in Creative Commons. So if you ever have any Creative Commons copyright issues, I'm also the one to talk about or talk to. So let's get Mark to tell us how you build your own OERs.
Yeah, so these are the different icons for Creative Commons. I'm not going to read this to you. You can pause and do a little deep dive yourself. The thing to be aware of is the top 4 you are allowed to remix, adapt, build. That means that you can rearrange chapters, you can pull chapters out, you can insert content from one OER into another. It's called Build-A-Book. It's really, really cool. You have to follow the licenses so you're not breaking copyright. The thing to be aware of are the 2 bottom ones. If you see those, of course, they're still free to use, but you cannot mix and build and shuffle things around. And that's the ND and then the equal sign abbreviation. That stands for no derivatives. Can't do those, but the top 4, oh, it's so much fun. It's so cool.
And as you're searching for OERs, let's go back one slide. Most of the OERs you find are going to be the top 2, the BY and the BYSA. But I will put this caveat here. If you find something that's BYSA, let's say I'm creating a book on art history, and I find a really cool OER from Harvard, and it's copyrighted as CC BYSA. I can't take my book that I create from the Harvard book and not share it. Once you reshare that book, you have to put the SA. So any book you get that has the SA, you have to relicense your book with that SA or you're breaking copyright. It's kind of complex and it takes a while to get used to, but once you understand Creative Commons, it makes it so much easier.
So what you'll do is there's some different online repositories of OERs. They're going to be a PDF file. So what you want to do is you want to save the PDF, right? And this could be on your desktop, for example. Then you right-click on the PDF. Windows going to open, and go to Open With. And you want to open with Microsoft Word. And what this is called ripping. Ripping a PDF into a Word doc. And I always tell people when you're doing this, please be patient because these are books, hundreds of pages long. And then an amazing thing happens. You have a Word doc of that book. Wow. So this is an example here of working with 2 different religion texts, right? So you see here South and East Asian and then Western. So say, for example, you want to combine, and instead of having 2 separate textbooks, you want to have the Asian within the Western. So that's what you would do. You would take those PDFs and you would rip them into Word docs, and then you always want to check the licensing information. That's what I've highlighted here. And this is what's so cool is that the authors of OERs, they want you to take and use these books. And they'll tell you how to license it and how to cite it. And it's right there with these 2 books is right there on the title page. So I was like, well, this is so cool, so friendly. They're telling me how to do this. And you just follow what they're saying how to do. So then, if you look to the left, you highlight the content that you want to use from that one text. Then you Control-C, which is copy. Then to the right, open up that other text, click where you want to have that information, and then Control-V, which is paste. And then, of course, you just give the citation that was told you how to do it from that title page. And, of course, you're going to have to make some changes to your table of contents. But it's just as simple as copy-paste.
And how much does it cost?
Free.
And how much do students love it?
Oh, believe me, they love it. So, when you're doing this, always tell people you want to spend a lot of time reviewing the textbooks. You might be surprised you might find a book that you don't need to do anything with. Oh, and that's a treat. So I always tell people you want to start with quality materials because that way you don't have to go in and build a book or supplement it with your own materials.
Let me ask you a quick question. Who knows your students better, publishers or you?
Me.
And what's the difference between you and people that write textbooks? Do you have the same degrees?
Yeah, same, same credentials, same degrees. We have publications ourselves, right? Yeah, we do. So don't think that someone working for the mafia can write a better book than you. It's not true. Not true. The second bullet point, you want to close all apps and programs and only have Microsoft Word running because these books are books. They're hundreds of pages long. As you're working, rename and save files often. I found that really helps. And be patient because your PC will drag, it's going to run slow, and it's going to crash. It happens when I'm working with OERs, but by renaming and saving, you're going to be able to keep track and you won't have to do anything but reboot your computer. And then that last bullet point, always follow licensing. Always follow licensing. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
We're always here to help, and we're really glad to help. This is, like I said, this has become our passion, and if you'd like us to come and speak at your school, let us know. We'll travel for food. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, y'all.